Welcome to NBA Season Recaps, where we dive deep into the most fascinating chapters of basketball history. If you enjoy falling asleep to the gentle rhythm of basketball history, consider subscribing to NBA Season Recaps and hitting that notification bell. We upload new sleep-friendly basketball stories every week, designed specifically to help you drift off while learning about the game's most incredible moments. Tonight, we're going back to 1995 and 1996, to a season that redefined greatness across the entire NBA landscape. From Michael Jordan's dominant return to Magic Johnson's surprising comeback, from rookie sensations to veteran farewells, from the Western Conference Wars to the most dominant regular season in basketball history. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and let me take you on a journey through 6 months that transformed the NBA forever. While the Chicago Bulls would capture headlines with their historic 72-win season, the league was experiencing a renaissance of talent and storylines that made every night compelling. Michael Jordan was back from his baseball experiment, determined to prove his championship window hadn't closed. Magic Johnson stunned the basketball world by returning from retirement to rejoin the Los Angeles Lakers at age 36. The Houston Rockets, led by Hakeem Olajuwon, were defending their back-to-back championships from 1994 and 1995. Young stars like Shaquille O'Neal in Orlando and Penny Hardaway were establishing themselves as the league's future. The 1995 draft had brought one of the most intriguing rookie classes in NBA history, led by Kevin Garnett's unprecedented jump directly from high school to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The draft also featured Joe Smith to Golden State, Antonio McDyess to the Los Angeles Clippers, Jerry Stackhouse to Philadelphia, and Rasheed Wallace to Washington. International players were making their mark across the league in ways that hadn't been seen before. Dikembe Mutombo was establishing himself as one of the premier shot blockers in Denver, while players like Noras, Maviu Leonis, Detlef Schrempf, and Rick Smits were proving that basketball excellence transcended borders. The league was becoming truly global for the first time. Veteran superstars like Karl Malone and John Stockton in Utah were still in their prime, while legends like Charles Barkley in Phoenix were chasing their first championship in what might be their final opportunities. The depth of talent across the league was extraordinary, with legitimate championship contenders scattered throughout both conferences, from coast to coast. The NBA was deeper and more competitive than it had been in years. What unfolded was a season that would be remembered not just for one team's dominance, but for the incredible depth of talent and storylines that made the entire league compelling from opening night through the finals. The draft lottery had been particularly dramatic, with several franchises positioning themselves for what many considered the deepest draft in years. The Golden State Warriors won the lottery and selected Joe Smith from the University of Maryland with the first overall pick. Smith was considered the safest selection, a versatile power forward who could contribute immediately with his combination of size, athleticism, and basketball intelligence. His college career had been marked by steady improvement and professional maturity that suggested he could handle the transition to professional basketball. But the most shocking selection came at number 5, when the Minnesota Timberwolves chose Kevin Garnett directly from Farragut Career Academy in Chicago. Garnett became only the second player in NBA history to make the jump directly from high school to the professional ranks, following Moses Malone's path from 1974. The decision was considered revolutionary and risky, with most experts questioning whether a 19-year-old could handle the physical and mental demands of professional basketball. The Philadelphia 76ers selected Jerry Stackhouse from the University of North Carolina with the 3rd pick, adding a dynamic scorer who many compared to a young Michael Jordan. His explosive athleticism and scoring ability had made him one of college basketball's most exciting players. The Los Angeles Clippers chose Antonio McDyess from the University of Alabama with the 2nd pick, while the Washington Bullets selected Rasheed Wallace from the University of North Carolina with the 4th pick. The Portland Trail Blazers made what would prove to be one of the draft's most impactful selections by choosing Damon Stoudemire from the University of Arizona with the 7th pick. At 5 feet 10 inches, Stoudemire was considered undersized for professional basketball, but his court vision and leadership had made him one of college basketball's most effective point guards. The international flavor of the draft was also notable, with several European players being selected throughout the first and second rounds. The NBA's global expansion was beginning to show in its talent acquisition, with scouts increasingly looking beyond American colleges for elite prospects. This international focus would prove prophetic as basketball's global popularity began to explode. The summer also brought significant roster movement across the league. The most impactful trade involved Dennis Rodman moving from the San Antonio Spurs to the Chicago Bulls in exchange for Will Perdue. The transaction was considered risky for Chicago, as Rodman's volatile personality and off-court controversies had made him a challenging teammate in San Antonio, but his rebounding ability and defensive intensity provided Chicago with a dimension they had lacked during their earlier championship runs. Magic Johnson's announcement that he was considering a comeback created headlines throughout the summer, though few believed the 36-year-old legend would actually return to competitive basketball after more than 4 years away from the game. His HIV diagnosis in 1991 had shocked the sports world and seemingly ended one of the greatest careers in basketball history. The medical and competitive challenges of returning at his age seemed insurmountable to most observers. The Houston Rockets entered the season as defending champions, but questions surrounded their ability to capture a 3rd consecutive title. In Chicago, Michael Jordan was entering his first full season back from retirement, determined to erase the memory of the Bulls' playoff loss to Orlando in May 1995. The addition of Dennis Rodman from San Antonio had given the Bulls a rebounding force they had never possessed, but questions remained about whether Rodman's volatile personality would mesh with the championship culture Phil Jackson had built. The Houston Rockets opened the season as defending champions, with Hakeem Olajuwon still in his prime and determined to capture a 3rd consecutive title. Olajuwon was coming off back-to-back finals, MVP performances in 1994 and 1995, and was widely considered the best center in basketball. The Rockets had maintained their core around their superstar setter, believing they could extend their championship window even as questions arose about championship fatigue. In Orlando, the young Magic team that had defeated Jordan's Bulls the previous spring was ready to take the next step. Shaquille O'Neal was entering his 4th season, coming off a campaign where he averaged 29.3 points and 11.4 rebounds per game while establishing himself as the most dominant physical force in the NBA. His partnership with Penny Hardaway represented the future of basketball, athletic, versatile, and exciting. The Magic had added veteran leadership to complement their young stars, believing they could challenge for their first championship. The rookie class was making immediate impacts across the league. Damon Stoudemire, selected 7th overall by the Portland Trail Blazers from the University of Arizona, was showing that his size limitations at 5 feet 10 inches couldn't contain his basketball genius. Stoudemire was averaging over 18 points and 8 assists per game from the season's opening weeks, establishing himself as the frontrunner for Rookie of the Year honors while transforming Portland's offense with his court vision and leadership. Kevin Garnett's transition from high school to professional basketball was providing daily intrigue. At just 19 years old, Garnett was showing flashes of the versatility that would define his career. But he was also experiencing the growing pains that came with such an unprecedented jump in competition level. His games were inconsistent, ranging from brilliant displays of athleticism and skill to struggles against veteran players who understood how to exploit his inexperience. But the potential was undeniable to anyone watching closely. Joe Smith was providing immediate production for the Golden State Warriors, averaging over 14 points and 8 rebounds while showing the kind of fundamental soundness that had made him the top pick in the draft. His professionalism and work ethic were setting an example for other rookies throughout the league, while his ability to contribute immediately was helping Golden State remain competitive in the loaded Western Conference. The Western Conference was loaded with talent and compelling storylines. The Seattle Supersonics, led by Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, had developed into one of the league's most dangerous teams after winning 57 games in 1994 to 1995. Their combination of athleticism, defensive intensity, and playoff experience made them legitimate championship contenders. The Utah Jazz continued to build around the pick-and-roll mastery of Karl Malone and John Stockton, coming off a 60-win season that had established them as one of the Western Conference's most consistent powers. Malone was entering the season determined to capture his first championship, understanding that his window for ultimate success was beginning to narrow, despite his continued excellence. The San Antonio Spurs featured David Robinson, still one of the league's premier centers, leading a team that had won 62 games the previous season. Robinson's combination of athleticism and skill made him one of the most complete big men in basketball, while the Spurs' system and depth made them dangerous opponents for any team. The Bulls opened their season on November 3rd against the Charlotte Hornets at the United Center. Jordan scored 42 points in a dominant performance that served notice to the league that his return was complete and his motivation was at championship levels. But more importantly, the Bulls looked different from their previous incarnations. International players were making their presence felt throughout the league in unprecedented ways. Dikembe Mutombo's shot blocking for the Denver Nuggets was creating nightly highlights, while his finger-wagging celebration was becoming one of the NBA's most recognizable gestures. His defensive dominance was changing games and inspiring teammates, while entertaining fans with his charismatic personality. European players like Detlef Schrempf in Seattle and Rick Smits in Indiana were proving that basketball excellence knew no borders. The international influence on NBA basketball was becoming undeniable. By the end of November, the Bulls were 12-2, a record that was impressive, but not yet historic. They weren't the only team making headlines. As the Houston Rockets were adjusting to life as defending champions, and young teams like Orlando and Seattle were proving they belonged among the league's elite. The most improved player race was beginning to take shape, with Washington's Jorg Murasan emerging as an early frontrunner. The 7'7" center from Romania was having a breakthrough season, averaging over 14 points and 9 rebounds, while establishing himself as one of the league's most effective interior players. His size was novelty, but his skill was legitimate and improving with each game. Chapter 4, December 1995. Building momentum and award races. As winter settled across the country, the NBA landscape began to take shape. The Bulls continued their dominant start, but several other storylines were capturing the basketball world's attention, including emerging award races that would define individual excellence throughout the season. The Rookie of the Year race was becoming one of the season's most compelling narratives. Damon Stoudemire was establishing himself as the clear frontrunner with his dynamic play in Portland. Despite his size limitations, Stoudemire was averaging over 19 points and 8 assists per game, orchestrating the Trail Blazers' offense with a maturity that belied his experience level. His court vision and basketball intelligence were reminiscent of great point guards throughout NBA history, while his ability to score from anywhere on the court was keeping opposing defenses honest. But Stoudemire wasn't running away with the award unopposed. Kevin Garnett was showing increasing flashes of brilliance for the Minnesota Timberwolves, his versatility and athleticism creating possibilities that traditional positions couldn't contain. At 19, Garnett was still learning the NBA game, but his potential was becoming undeniable with each passing game. His ability to guard multiple positions while contributing in all statistical categories was suggesting a future that exceeded even optimistic projections. Joe Smith was providing steady production for the Golden State Warriors, his fundamental soundness and professional approach earning respect throughout the league. Jerry Stackhouse was showing explosive scoring ability in Philadelphia. His athleticism and competitive fire-drawing comparisons to a young Michael Jordan. Antonio McDyess was providing athleticism and energy for the Los Angeles Clippers that suggested a bright future, while his rebounding and shot blocking were immediate contributions. The Houston Rockets were facing the championship hangover that affects many defending champions. Despite Hakeem Olajuwon's continued excellence, the team was struggling to maintain the intensity that had carried them through 2 championship runs. Role players like Robert Horry and Sam Cassell were showing signs of fatigue from their extended playoff runs, and the depth that had been crucial to their success was beginning to show cracks under the pressure of defending their title. Charles Barkley, now in his 3rd season with the Phoenix Suns after being traded from Philadelphia in 1993, was having one of his most efficient seasons while chasing the championship that had eluded him throughout his career. At 32, Barkley knew his window was closing, and he was playing with a desperate intensity that made the Suns one of the Western Conference's most dangerous teams. His leadership and efficient play were driving Phoenix toward what many considered his best opportunity to capture an elusive championship. The 6th Man of the Year award was beginning to take shape, with Chicago's Toni Kukoc emerging as the frontrunner. The Croatian forward was providing versatility and scoring punch off the Bulls' bench, his basketball intelligence and passing ability making him one of the most valuable reserves in the league. Kukoc's ability to play multiple positions and create offense in various ways was crucial to the Bulls' depth and championship aspirations, while his clutch play was earning recognition throughout the basketball world. Jorge Mourasan's breakout season in Washington was becoming one of the feel-good stories of the NBA year. The Romanian center was not just surviving in the NBA. He was thriving in ways that exceeded all expectations. His 7'7" frame made him an intimidating presence, but his improving skill set was what made him truly effective. Mourasan was averaging over 14 points and 9 rebounds, establishing himself as the clear frontrunner for most improved player honors while transforming the Washington Bullets from afterthought to respectable competitor. In Utah, Karl Malone was having another MVP-caliber season, averaging over 26 points and 10 rebounds while leading the Jazz toward another strong playoff position. His partnership with John Stockton remained one of the most effective combinations in basketball, with Stockton continuing to lead the league in assists at 11.2 per game with his trademark consistency and court vision. The Jazz were building toward what many considered their best championship opportunity, with Malone and Stockton both understanding that their window for ultimate success was beginning to narrow. The Bulls, meanwhile, were beginning to hit their stride in December. Game after game, they dismantled opponents with a combination of Jordan's brilliance, Scottie Pippen's versatility, and role players who understood their assignments perfectly. Steve Kerr was hitting three-pointers with clockwork precision, providing spacing that made the triangle offense even more effective. Dennis Rodman's rebounding was more than compensating for Horace Grant's departure to Orlando, while his defensive intensity and psychological warfare were creating additional advantages. The triangle offense was reaching new levels of sophistication under Phil Jackson's guidance. Jordan had always been the system's primary weapon, but now he was learning to trust it completely, understanding that the system's ball movement and spacing would create better shots for everyone. Possessions would flow through multiple players, creating open shots and drawing defenses out of position in ways that made Chicago nearly impossible to defend consistently. International influence continued to grow throughout the league. The success of international players was opening eyes throughout the basketball world about the global talent pool that existed beyond American borders. By Christmas, The Bulls were 24-2, a pace that was turning heads around the league and beginning to generate conversations about historic achievement. But they were far from the only compelling story in the NBA. The league's depth and competitive balance were creating nightly entertainment that kept fans engaged from coast to coast, with compelling storylines and individual excellence that transcended normal sporting entertainment. The Coach of the Year race was also beginning to develop, with several candidates emerging for the honor. Phil Jackson's work with the Bulls was obvious, but coaches like George Karl in Seattle and Jerry Sloan in Utah were also doing exceptional work with their respective teams. The competition for individual awards was adding another layer of intrigue to an already compelling season. The Bulls began the month by winning their next 8 games, often by margins of 20 points or more. Jordan was playing with a controlled fury that opponents found impossible to match, averaging over 30 points per game while shooting with an efficiency that suggested he had never left basketball. Every slight, every doubt about his return, every suggestion that his baseball experiment had diminished his basketball skills was being answered with performances that reminded everyone exactly who they were dealing with. But the month's most shocking development came on January 30th, when Magic Johnson made his long-awaited return to the court. The build-up to Magic's return had been months in the making. The AIDS crisis had created fear and misunderstanding that made his diagnosis particularly challenging, and his decision to return was as much a statement about living with HIV as it was about basketball. The building was electric with anticipation as Magic took the court wearing number 32, coming off the bench in the fourth quarter. The standing ovation lasted several minutes, with players from both teams joining in recognition of the moment's significance. He contributed 19 points, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds in a victory that felt like a celebration of basketball itself, and a triumph of human spirit over adversity. Magic wasn't playing point guard anymore. He was operating as a power forward, his body thicker and more powerful from years of intense training during his time away. His court vision remained extraordinary, and his leadership immediately changed the energy around a Lakers team that had been struggling to find identity in the post-Showtime era. The basketball intelligence and competitive fire that had made him legendary were undiminished by time or circumstance. The announcement of Magic's return had sent shockwaves throughout the basketball world in the preceding weeks. Medical experts had questioned the wisdom of his comeback, while basketball purists wondered whether a player approaching 40 could compete at the highest level after such an extended absence. Magic's first game back provided emphatic answers to both concerns while raising awareness about HIV prevention and treatment in ways that transcended sports. The Houston Rockets' title defense was becoming more problematic as January progressed. Hakeem Olajuwon remained dominant, averaging over 26 points and 9 rebounds while continuing to showcase the complete skill set that had made him the premier center in basketball. But the supporting cast was showing signs of championship fatigue that were becoming more apparent with each game. Role players who had been crucial to their playoff runs, including Kenny Smith and Mario Elie, were struggling with consistency, and the team's depth was being tested by injuries and declining performance from key contributors. In Orlando, Shaquille O'Neal was establishing himself as the most physically dominant player in the NBA. His combination of size, strength, and surprising agility was creating nightly highlights while making the Magic one of the Eastern Conference's most dangerous teams. His partnership with Penny Hardaway was developing into one of the league's most dynamic duos, with both players still just 23 years old and improving with each game. The Magic were building toward what many considered their best championship opportunity, with O'Neal's dominance providing a foundation that could challenge any opponent. The rookie class was continuing to make impacts throughout the league, with award races becoming more defined as the season progressed. Damon Stoudemire was maintaining his front-runner status for Rookie of the Year with consistently excellent play in Portland. Kevin Garnett was showing increasing confidence and skill with each passing game. His versatility was becoming more apparent as Minnesota coaches found creative ways to utilize his unique skill set. At 19, Garnett was still learning the nuances of professional basketball, but his athleticism and basketball intelligence were creating matchup problems that opposing teams struggled to solve. His defensive potential was particularly intriguing, as his combination of size, speed, and anticipation was suggesting possibilities that traditional big men couldn't match. The Western Conference continued to showcase incredible depth and talent. The Seattle Supersonics, led by Gary Payton's defensive intensity and Shawn Kemp's athleticism, were building toward what many considered their best championship opportunity. Their record of 41 wins and 13 losses through January had them positioned as the top seed in the Western Conference, while their combination of youth and experience was creating confidence that this might be their championship moment. Gary Payton's defensive excellence was reaching levels that were making him a legitimate candidate for Defensive Player of the Year, an award that had never been won by a point guard. His combination of quickness, strength, and basketball intelligence was making him one of the most feared perimeter defenders in the league, while his leadership and competitive fire were driving Seattle toward championship contention. Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns were making their own push in the competitive Western Conference. Barkley was playing some of the most efficient basketball of his career, understanding that his championship window was rapidly closing. His leadership and intensity were driving a Suns team that believed they could compete with anyone, while his desperation to capture an elusive championship was creating some of the most compelling individual basketball of the season. Individual award races were heating up across multiple categories. The Defensive Player of the Year race was particularly intriguing, with Gary Payton emerging as a legitimate candidate to become the first point guard in NBA history to win the honor. Yorga Mirasan's Most Improved Player candidacy was becoming stronger with each passing game. The Washington center was not just surviving in the NBA. He was thriving in ways that exceeded everyone's expectations. His development represented one of the season's most pleasant surprises, while his success was inspiring other international players throughout the league. Tony Kukoc was solidifying his position as the frontrunner for Sixth Man of the Year with his versatile play off the Chicago bench. The Bulls went undefeated in January, winning all 14 of their games that month. Their 18-game winning streak stretched from late December into early February, before finally ending in a loss to the Charlotte Hornets on February 4th. But even that defeat felt like a brief interruption rather than a sign of vulnerability. The Bulls had proven their point. They were not just back. They were better than they had ever been, operating on a level that seemed to transcend normal basketball competition. As January ended, the NBA landscape was becoming clearer. The Bulls were establishing themselves as the team to beat, but the league's depth ensured that every night brought compelling basketball from multiple storylines. The combination of individual excellence and team competition was creating one of the most memorable seasons in NBA history. The Alamodome was the setting for a weekend that would serve as both celebration and coronation for the season's biggest stars, while providing a national stage for the league's most compelling storylines. Michael Jordan's return to the All-Star game was the weekend's primary storyline. Jordan did not disappoint, scoring 20 points and grabbing 4 rebounds while leading the Eastern Conference to victory. His performance was a reminder that even among the NBA's elite, Jordan operated on a different level, his competitive fire and basketball brilliance undiminished by his time away. The All-Star game itself featured many of the season's most compelling storylines. Magic Johnson was selected for the Western Conference team, his comeback season earning recognition from both fans and coaches despite his age and extended absence from basketball. At 36, Magic was the oldest All-Star in the game. but his leadership and basketball intelligence remained undiminished. His 9 assists in limited playing time showcased the court vision that had made him legendary, while his presence provided inspiration for teammates and fans alike. Shaquille O'Neal's dominance was on full display during All-Star Weekend. His performance in the game, combined with his charismatic personality during the weekend's festivities, reinforced his status as one of the league's most marketable superstars. The combination of his physical dominance and engaging personality was helping to drive the NBA's popularity to new heights. While his youth suggested that his best years were still ahead of him, the rookie class was also well represented during All-Star Weekend, with several first-year players participating in various events. Damon Stoudemire's inclusion highlighted his front-runner status for Rookie of the Year honors, while his play against veteran All-Stars demonstrated the court vision and leadership that were making him one of the league's most promising young players. But the weekend was also notable for the conversations happening behind the scenes. Coaches, executives, and players were discussing the Bulls' historic pace and whether any team could challenge their championship aspirations. As play resumed after the All-Star break, several storylines continued to develop. The Bulls' pursuit of 70 wins was becoming a legitimate possibility rather than a distant dream. Their systematic destruction of opponents was reaching historic proportions, with blowout victories becoming routine rather than exceptional. Each game carried historical weight, as victories brought them closer to breaking the Lakers' record of 69 wins that had stood since 1972. Magic Johnson's integration into the Lakers lineup was providing nightly entertainment and basketball education. His ability to elevate teammates and create opportunities was transforming Los Angeles from a lottery team into a potential playoff contender. The Lakers' improved play was a testament to Magic's continued basketball genius and leadership ability, while his presence was creating renewed excitement for a franchise that had been struggling to find identity in the post-Showtime era. The rookie class was continuing to develop, with award races becoming more defined as the season entered its final months. Damon Stoudemire was maintaining his Rookie of the Year frontrunner status with consistently excellent play. His combination of scoring and playmaking was driving Portland toward an unexpected playoff position in the loaded Western Conference, while his maturity and leadership were drawing comparisons to great point guards throughout NBA history. Kevin Garnett was showing increasing confidence and skill with each passing game. His development was exceeding even optimistic projections, as his versatility and athleticism were creating possibilities that traditional positions couldn't contain. The 19-year-old was proving that his unprecedented jump from high school to professional basketball was not just viable, but potentially revolutionary for how teams would approach player development in the future. Individual award races were intensifying as the season entered its final third. Gary Payton's candidacy for Defensive Player of the Year was gaining momentum, with his lockdown perimeter defense setting a new standard for point guard excellence. The possibility of a point guard winning the award was capturing the imagination of basketball purists throughout the league, while his defensive impact was providing Seattle with a foundation for championship contention. Yoga Murasan's Most Improved Player candidacy was becoming undeniable. The 7'7" center was averaging over 14 points and 9 rebounds while shooting better than 57% from the field. His development represented one of the most dramatic individual improvements in NBA history, while his success was inspiring other international players and opening eyes about global talent pools. Phil Jackson's Coach of the Year candidacy was strengthening with each Bulls victory. His ability to manage diverse personalities while implementing a system that maximized individual strengths was being recognized as one of the coaching masterpieces in NBA history. The triangle offense had reached levels of sophistication that made basketball look like art, while the Bulls' defensive intensity was creating problems that opponents found impossible to solve consistently. The Bulls' February schedule included several marquee matchups that would test their championship mettle. Games against quality opponents like Utah, Seattle, and San Antonio would provide measuring sticks for their historic season. Each victory brought them closer to basketball immortality, while their systematic approach to each game was creating confidence that they could maintain their excellence through the playoffs. International players continued to make their mark throughout the league. The success of players like Dikembe Mutombo, Detlef Schrempf, and Reek Smits was opening eyes about the global talent pool that existed beyond American borders. The NBA's international expansion was beginning to show tangible results on the court, while television broadcasts were reaching new markets and creating worldwide interest in professional basketball. As February concluded, the Bulls had extended their historic pace while the rest of the league had provided compelling storylines and individual excellence. The combination of team dominance and individual achievement was creating one of the most memorable seasons in professional basketball history, with cultural impact that was extending far beyond normal sporting achievement. The conversation had shifted from whether they could break the Lakers' record of 69 wins to whether any team could challenge them in the playoffs. But the Bulls' dominance was happening against the backdrop of a league that was becoming increasingly global and culturally significant in ways that transcended normal sporting achievement. The NBA's international expansion was becoming apparent in ways beyond individual player contributions. Television broadcasts were reaching new markets, merchandise sales were exploding globally, and the league's cultural influence was extending far beyond basketball courts. The Bulls' historic season was serving as a catalyst for the NBA's worldwide popularity, with Michael Jordan's global appeal driving interest from continents that had previously shown limited basketball enthusiasm. The cultural impact of the season was extending into fashion, music, and entertainment. NBA jerseys were becoming fashion statements rather than just sporting apparel, with players like Jordan and O'Neal becoming style icons whose influence extended far beyond basketball courts. Hip-hop artists were referencing basketball players in their lyrics with increasing frequency, while the intersection of sports and popular culture was becoming more pronounced than ever before. Magic Johnson's comeback was providing inspiration beyond basketball. His openness about living with HIV was helping to reduce stigma and increase awareness about the disease in ways that extended far beyond sports entertainment. Medical professionals were studying his case and treatment regimen, while his public platform was helping to educate millions about HIV prevention and treatment. His return to basketball was as much a public health statement as it was a sporting achievement. The rookie class was continuing to develop, with several players establishing themselves as future stars. Damon Stoudemire was not just winning Rookie of the Year. He was setting a new standard for point guard excellence that was influencing how teams thought about the position. Kevin Garnett's development was accelerating at a rate that surprised even his most optimistic supporters. His versatility was creating matchup problems that teams struggled to solve, while his athleticism and basketball intelligence were suggesting a ceiling that seemed unlimited. The success of his unprecedented high school to NBA transition was opening doors for future prospects and potentially revolutionizing how teams would approach player development. Individual award races were reaching their climax as the regular season entered its final month. Michael Jordan was the overwhelming favorite for Most Valuable Player, his combination of individual excellence and team success making him the obvious choice for the honor. His averages of 30.4 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 4.3 assists were accompanied by elite defense and unmatched leadership that had driven the Bulls to historic heights. Gary Payton's Defensive Player of the Year candidacy was making history. His combination of quickness, strength, and basketball intelligence was revolutionizing what people believed possible from the point guard position defensively. The possibility of a point guard winning the award was capturing the imagination of basketball purists and casual fans alike, while his impact on Seattle's championship aspirations was becoming undeniable. Jorg Mursan's Most Improved Player award seemed inevitable by March. His development from curiosity to legitimate NBA center was one of the season's most compelling individual stories. The Romanian center was proving that basketball excellence could emerge from the most unexpected places and circumstances, while his success was inspiring other international players and opening eyes about global talent development. Phil Jackson's Coach of the Year credentials were becoming undeniable. His management of diverse personalities, implementation of the triangle offense, and ability to maintain focus during a historic season were showcasing coaching excellence at its highest level. The Bulls' systematic destruction of opponents was as much a tribute to Jackson's coaching as it was to individual talent, while his philosophical approach to basketball was influencing coaches throughout the league. Tony Kukoc had essentially locked up the Sixth Man of the Year award with his versatile play off the Chicago bench. His ability to score, pass, and defend multiple positions was proving crucial to the Bulls' depth and championship aspirations. The Croatian forward was setting a new standard for what teams could expect from their bench players, while his basketball intelligence and clutch play were earning recognition throughout the basketball world. The Bulls continued their historic pace through March, with each victory bringing them closer to basketball immortality. Their systematic approach to each game was creating blowout victories that seemed almost routine. The margin of victory was often decided by halftime, with the fourth quarter serving as garbage time rather than competitive basketball. Their dominance was reaching levels that seemed to transcend normal athletic competition. But March also highlighted the competitive depth throughout the rest of the league. The Western Conference playoff race was intensely competitive, with several teams fighting for seeding positions and playoff berths. The Seattle Supersonics were establishing themselves as the Bulls' most likely finals opponent. Their combination of athleticism and experience creating confidence that they could challenge Chicago in a 7-game series. The Utah Jazz were positioning themselves for another deep playoff run, with Karl Malone and John Stockton proving that fundamental basketball and championship experience could compete with more athletic opponents. Their pick-and-roll mastery remained nearly unstoppable, while their playoff experience was providing confidence that they could excel under postseason pressure. Magic Johnson's impact on the Lakers was becoming undeniable as March progressed. His leadership and court vision were transforming a franchise that had been struggling in the post-Showtime era. The international influence on the NBA was becoming more apparent with each passing week. European basketball was gaining credibility as players like Detlef Schrempf and Rick Smits continued to excel in prominent roles. Charles Barkley and the Phoenix Suns were making their own championship push, with Barkley understanding that this represented perhaps his final opportunity to capture an elusive championship. His leadership and efficient play were driving Phoenix toward what many considered their best championship opportunity, though the Western Conference's depth was creating challenges that would test every contender's resolve and depth. As March concluded, the Bulls needed just a few more victories to make history. But their pursuit of 70 wins was happening against the backdrop of a league that was becoming more global, more culturally significant, and more competitive than ever before. The 1995-1996 season was transforming not just basketball records, but the sport's place in popular culture and international consciousness. The final weeks of the regular season served as both climax and epilogue to a campaign that had redefined excellence across multiple dimensions of professional sports and popular culture. On April 14th, 1996, the Bulls achieved basketball history by winning their 70th game of the season with a victory over the Washington Bullets at the United Center. The achievement was celebrated not just in Chicago, but throughout the basketball world, as fans and experts acknowledged witnessing something that might never be repeated. The United Center crowd provided a standing ovation that lasted several minutes, while players from both teams joined in recognition of the historic moment. But the Bulls weren't content with merely breaking the record. Phil Jackson pushed his team to finish as strong as they had started, believing that maintaining intensity through the season's final games would serve them well in the playoffs. The psychology of excellence demanded that they not let up simply because they had achieved their primary regular season goal. The individual award races reached their conclusions throughout April, with several players achieving historic recognition for their exceptional seasons. Michael Jordan's fourth Most Valuable Player award was announced to universal acclaim, though the voting wasn't as unanimous as his performance might have suggested. But beyond the numbers was the intangible leadership that had driven the Bulls to heights no NBA team had ever reached. Gary Payton's selection as Defensive Player of the Year made NBA history, as he became the first point guard ever to receive the honor. His revolutionary defensive play had redefined what was possible from the point guard position, combining quickness, strength, and basketball intelligence in ways that made him one of the most feared perimeter defenders in league history. His ability to disrupt opposing offenses while providing leadership for Seattle's championship aspirations had been one of the season's most compelling individual storylines. Jorg Muresan was officially named Most Improved Player, recognition for one of the most dramatic individual developments in NBA history. The Romanian center had transformed from curiosity to legitimate NBA contributor, averaging 14.5 points and 9.6 rebounds while shooting 58% from the field. His development represented the kind of personal growth that inspired athletes worldwide, while demonstrating that basketball excellence could emerge from the most unexpected circumstances. Phil Jackson earned Coach of the Year honors for his masterful guidance of the Bulls' historic season. His ability to manage diverse personalities while implementing a system that maximized individual strengths while serving team goals had created a coaching masterpiece that would be studied for decades. The triangle offense had reached levels of sophistication that made basketball look like art, while Jackson's philosophical approach to coaching was influencing educators and leaders far beyond sports. Tony Kukoc was awarded Sixth Man of the Year, recognition for his versatile contributions off the Chicago bench. His ability to score, pass, and defend multiple positions had provided the Bulls with a depth advantage that proved crucial throughout their record-breaking season. The Croatian forward's basketball intelligence and clutch play had set new standards for bench production while demonstrating the value of international players in the NBA. The Rookie of the Year award went to Damon Stoudemire, whose exceptional season in Portland had set new standards for point guard excellence. His averages of 19 points and 9.4 assists had transformed the Trailblazers while showcasing basketball intelligence that belied his experience level. His success was proving that size limitations could be overcome through skill, intelligence, and determination. But April was also significant for the broader impact the season had created beyond individual awards and team records. Magic Johnson's comeback had inspired millions while raising awareness about HIV prevention and treatment in ways that extended far beyond sports entertainment. His openness about living with the disease had helped reduce stigma while providing hope to countless people facing similar challenges, demonstrating how athletic platforms could be used for social good. The international influence on the NBA had reached new levels throughout the season, with players from multiple continents contributing to the league's success. The global appeal of basketball was becoming undeniable, with television broadcasts reaching new markets and merchandise sales exploding worldwide. The Bulls' historic season had served as a catalyst for the NBA's international expansion, while players like Dikembe Mutombo and Detlef Schrempf were proving that basketball excellence transcended national borders. The rookie class of 1995 had proven to be one of the most impactful in league history. Beyond Damon Stoudemire's Rookie of the Year performance, players like Kevin Garnett were showing potential that suggested the NBA's future was in capable hands. Garnett's unprecedented transition from high school to professional basketball had opened new possibilities for player development while challenging traditional assumptions about readiness for professional competition. The cultural impact of the season extended far beyond basketball courts. NBA players were becoming global celebrities, fashion icons, and cultural ambassadors in ways that had never been seen before. The intersection of sports, music, and entertainment was creating new possibilities for athlete influence and commercial success, while the Bulls' dominance was driving television ratings and international interest to unprecedented levels. As April concluded and playoff preparation began, the basketball world was preparing for what many considered the most anticipated postseason in NBA history. The Western Conference playoff picture was particularly intriguing, with the Seattle Supersonics emerging as the most likely finals opponent for Chicago. Magic Johnson's Lakers had qualified for the playoffs as the fifth seed in the Western Conference, providing the veteran legend with an opportunity to extend his comeback season into the postseason. His leadership and experience could prove valuable in the playoff pressure cooker, though the Lakers faced daunting opposition throughout the loaded Western Conference bracket. The international players throughout the league were preparing for their first extended playoff exposure, with many proving that basketball excellence transcended national borders. Players like Dikembe Mutombo and Detlef Schrempf would have opportunities to showcase their skills on basketball's biggest stage, while their success was opening eyes about global talent development and international basketball potential. As the regular season concluded, the 1995-1996 campaign had established itself as one of the most significant in NBA history. The 7-game series format was designed to reward depth, experience, and mental toughness over pure talent. Conventional wisdom suggested that the Bulls' historic regular season might actually work against them, creating pressure and expectations that could lead to playoff disappointment. Instead, the Bulls continued their systematic destruction of opponents, while the basketball world marveled at their sustained excellence. The Bulls swept the Miami Heat in the first round with performances that made their regular season dominance seem understated. Pat Riley's team had been constructed specifically to challenge Chicago's finesse with physical, grinding basketball. The Heat featured veteran toughness, defensive intensity, and the kind of playoff experience that was supposed to create problems for even the most talented opponents. Riley had built the Heat around the philosophy that championships were won through defensive intensity and physical play rather than artistic basketball. Tim Hardaway provided veteran point guard leadership, while Alonzo Mourning's shot blocking and rebounding were supposed to neutralize Chicago's interior presence. The Heat's supporting cast of players like P.J. Brown and Kurt Thomas brought the kind of playoff toughness that had traditionally given the Bulls problems. Instead, the Bulls won 3 straight games by an average of nearly 20 points, dismantling Miami's defense with ball movement and spacing that seemed to operate on a different level than normal basketball. Jordan averaged 29.7 points in the sweep while shooting 55% from the field. But the Bulls' dominance was systematic rather than individual. Their ball movement created open shots from multiple players, while their defensive intensity forced Miami into difficult shots and turnovers that led to easy scoring opportunities. The cultural impact of the Bulls' playoff dominance was becoming apparent beyond basketball circles. Television ratings were reaching historic levels, with international broadcasts drawing audiences that exceeded all previous basketball viewing records. The Bulls were becoming a global phenomenon, with Jordan's appeal transcending sports to enter the realm of pure celebrity. Merchandise sales were exploding worldwide, while the team's success was driving interest in basketball from continents that had previously shown limited enthusiasm for American professional sports. In the Western Conference, the playoffs were providing their own compelling storylines, as several teams battled for the right to face Chicago in the finals. Magic Johnson's Lakers faced the Houston Rockets in what would prove to be Magic's final playoff series, a matchup that carried emotional weight for basketball fans who remembered his previous finals battles against the Rockets' core players. The series between the Lakers and Rockets was a study in contrasts. Magic's veteran leadership and basketball intelligence against Hakeem Olajuwon's athletic dominance, and the Rockets' championship experience. Magic's leadership and court vision were on full display as he averaged 16.2 points and 8 assists, proving that basketball genius could transcend physical limitations. His ability to elevate teammates and create opportunities was transforming individual possessions into team achievements, while his presence was inspiring Lakers players to perform beyond their normal capabilities. But the Lakers' age and lack of depth eventually showed against Houston's athletic superiority and championship experience. The Rockets advanced in 4 games. The Magic's performance provided basketball fans with final glimpses of the intelligence and leadership that had made him legendary. His playoff swan song served as both celebration and farewell to one of basketball's greatest careers, while his comeback season had proven that excellence could transcend time and circumstance. The Seattle Supersonics dominated their first-round opponent, the Sacramento Kings, with the kind of balanced excellence that suggested they might provide the Bulls with their most serious championship challenge. Gary Payton's defensive intensity was reaching playoff levels that seemed almost supernatural. His ability to pressure opposing point guards and create turnovers, providing Seattle with a foundation for sustained success. Shawn Kemp's athleticism was creating highlight reel moments that captivated basketball fans worldwide. His combination of power and grace, unique in NBA history. The chemistry between Payton and Kemp was producing basketball that seemed to operate on a higher artistic level than normal competitive sport, while their supporting cast was providing the depth and experience necessary for championship contention. The international influence on the playoffs was becoming more apparent, as players from multiple continents showcased their skills on basketball's biggest stage. Dikembe Mutombo's shot blocking for the Denver Nuggets was creating defensive masterpieces, his finger-wagging celebration becoming one of the most recognizable gestures in sports. European players like Detlef Schrempf were proving that basketball excellence knew no borders, their success opening eyes about global talent development while inspiring young players worldwide. The second round brought the Bulls against the New York Knicks, a matchup that carried historical and emotional significance. The Knicks represented everything the Bulls were not: physical, grinding, and built specifically to challenge Chicago's finesse-based approach. Pat Riley had constructed the Knicks around the philosophy that playoff basketball was won through defensive intensity and physical confrontation, rather than artistic ball movement. The Knicks featured Patrick Ewing's interior presence, John Starks' defensive intensity, and the kind of veteran toughness that had traditionally given the Bulls problems. Madison Square Garden would provide the hostile environment where many expected the Bulls' perfection to finally meet its match. The building's history and atmosphere were supposed to create pressure that could disrupt even the most composed teams. Instead, the Bulls won in 5 games with performances that made their dominance seem inevitable rather than impressive. Jordan's 44-point performance in Game 1 at Madison Square Garden served notice that even in hostile territory, the Bulls operated on a level that opponents couldn't match. His mastery of basketball's biggest stages was becoming more apparent with each playoff game, while his competitive fire seemed to intensify rather than diminish under pressure. The Bulls' systematic approach to playoff basketball was creating a new template for postseason success. Their ability to maintain regular season intensity while adapting to playoff physicality was demonstrating basketball excellence that seemed to belong more to theoretical perfection than actual athletic competition. Each possession was executed with precision that made their dominance seem effortless. The cultural phenomenon surrounding the Bulls was reaching levels that transcended sports journalism. Fashion magazines were covering Jordan's style. Music artists were referencing the team in their lyrics, and international media were providing coverage that treated the Bulls less like a basketball team and more like a cultural movement. The intersection of sports and popular culture was creating new possibilities for athlete influence and commercial success. Meanwhile, the Western Conference was providing its own dramatic storylines as the Seattle Supersonics continued their impressive playoff run. Their victory over the Houston Rockets in 4 games showcased the combination of youth, athleticism, and experience that made them legitimate championship contenders. The Supersonics were proving that they possessed the talent and mental toughness necessary to challenge the Bulls in a 7-game series. Gary Payton's defensive performance throughout the Western Conference playoffs was reaching legendary status. His ability to pressure opposing point guards while creating turnovers and fast break opportunities was providing Seattle with a foundation that seemed capable of challenging any opponent. The possibility of a point guard winning Finals MVP was beginning to enter basketball conversations, though few expected anyone to outplay Michael Jordan on basketball's biggest stage. Individual performances throughout the playoffs were creating their own historical significance. Jordan's combination of scoring brilliance and defensive intensity was reaching levels that reminded basketball historians of the greatest individual playoff performances in NBA history. His ability to elevate his game when the stakes were highest was becoming the defining characteristic of athletic greatness. As the second round concluded, the remaining playoff field was taking shape around the Bulls' continued dominance. Their advancement to the Eastern Conference Finals seemed less like progression through a bracket and more like an inevitable march toward historical completion. The global audience for the NBA playoffs was reaching unprecedented levels, with international broadcasts drawing viewers who had never previously shown interest in American professional sports. Chapter 10. The Western Conference Finals. Seattle versus Utah. While the Bulls were systematically destroying their Eastern Conference opponents, the Western Conference was providing one of the most compelling and hard-fought championship series in NBA history. The Seattle Supersonics and Utah Jazz were battling for the right to face Chicago in the finals, and their 7-game war would prove to be one of the most memorable playoff series of the decade. The matchup represented a clash of basketball philosophies and generational perspectives. The Seattle Supersonics embodied youth, athleticism, and explosive potential, led by the dynamic duo of Gary Payton and Shawn Kemp. At 27 and 26, respectively, both players were entering their prime years with the kind of athletic ability that could create highlight reel moments and change games in an instant. The Utah Jazz represented fundamental basketball excellence and championship experience, built around the ageless pick-and-roll mastery of Karl Malone and John Stockton. At 32 and 34, both future Hall of Famers understood that this might represent their best opportunity to capture the championship that had eluded them throughout their careers. Their systematic approach to basketball emphasized precision, execution, and mental toughness over pure athleticism. Game 1 in Seattle set the tone for what would become an epic battle of wills. The Supersonics' youth and athleticism were on full display as they took an early lead behind Payton's defensive intensity and Kemp's explosive dunks. The Key Arena crowd was electric, sensing that their team might finally be ready to take the next step toward championship glory. But the Jazz's championship experience showed in crucial moments. Malone and Stockton's pick-and-roll remained nearly unstoppable, creating scoring opportunities and drawing fouls that allowed Utah to maintain contact throughout the game. John Stockton's court vision and leadership were particularly crucial, as his ability to find open teammates and control the game's pace kept the Jazz competitive despite Seattle's athletic advantages. The series would prove to be a chess match between two coaching masterminds. George Karl's strategy for Seattle focused on using their athletic advantages to create fast break opportunities and force Utah into uncomfortable situations. His rotations and defensive schemes were designed to disrupt the Jazz's systematic approach while maximizing the Supersonics' speed and athleticism. Jerry Sloan's approach for Utah emphasized patience, execution, and mental toughness. His belief that championship basketball was won through fundamental excellence rather than athletic brilliance would be tested against Seattle's explosive potential. The Jazz's systematic approach to each possession was designed to limit Seattle's fast break opportunities while creating high-percentage shots for their veteran stars. Game 2 showcased the series' contrasting styles in stark relief. Utah's methodical approach led to a grinding, defensive battle that played into their strengths. Malone's interior presence and Stockton's court leadership were neutralizing Seattle's athletic advantages, while the Jazz's championship experience was showing in crucial moments when games were decided. The Supersonics responded in Game 3 with one of the most explosive playoff performances in their franchise history. Payton and Kemp were unstoppable, combining for over 50 points while their supporting cast provided the kind of balanced scoring that suggested championship depth. The Key Arena crowd was deafening, sensing that their team had found the formula for success against Utah's veteran excellence. But the Jazz's resilience would prove to be one of their defining characteristics throughout the series. Game 4 saw Malone and Stockton respond with a masterful display of fundamental basketball that reminded everyone why they were considered among the greatest duo in NBA history. Their pick-and-roll execution was reaching levels of perfection that seemed to transcend normal athletic competition. The series' pivotal moment came in Game 5, when both teams' championship aspirations hung in the balance. The game featured lead changes, momentum shifts, and individual performances that would be remembered for decades. Shawn Kemp's athleticism was reaching legendary levels, his dunks and defensive plays creating moments that seemed to defy gravity and basketball convention. Gary Payton's defensive intensity throughout the series was setting new standards for playoff excellence. His ability to pressure opposing point guards while creating offensive opportunities was providing Seattle with advantages that went far beyond normal statistical contribution. His leadership and competitive fire were inspiring teammates while intimidating opponents in ways that changed the series' dynamic. Game 6 in Utah provided one of the most hostile playoff environments in NBA history. The Salt Lake City crowd understood that this represented their team's best championship opportunity, and their energy was creating an atmosphere that seemed to lift the Jazz to new levels of performance. Malone and Stockton rose to the occasion with performances that reminded everyone why they were considered clutch performers. The decisive Game 7 would become one of the most memorable individual performances in playoff history. With everything on the line and both teams' championship dreams hanging in the balance, Gary Payton delivered a masterpiece that showcased every aspect of his basketball brilliance. His 28 points were accompanied by lockdown defense against John Stockton that effectively neutralized the Jazz's primary offensive weapon. Payton's performance in Game 7 transcended normal athletic achievement. His combination of offensive excellence and defensive dominance in the pressure of an elimination game established him as one of the premier clutch performers in NBA history. Every shot seemed to fall. Every defensive possession resulted in a stop, and his leadership inspired teammates to perform beyond their normal capabilities. Shawn Kemp's supporting performance was equally crucial, his athleticism and energy providing Seattle with the kind of explosive plays that changed momentum and inspired confidence. The chemistry between Payton and Kemp reached its pinnacle in Game 7, their complementary skills creating basketball that seemed to operate on a higher artistic level than normal competitive sport. The Supersonics' victory was celebrated as both team achievement and cultural milestone for the city of Seattle. The Pacific Northwest's enthusiasm for basketball reached fever pitch, with the team's success creating a regional identity that extended far beyond normal sports fandom. Their advancement to the finals represented the culmination of years of building and developing, while their style of play was providing entertainment that transcended normal basketball appreciation. The series had showcased two different approaches to basketball excellence, while providing some of the most compelling playoff basketball in NBA history. as the Supersonics celebrated their advancement to the finals. The basketball world prepared for what many considered the most anticipated championship series in years. Their youth and athleticism would be tested against Chicago's systematic excellence and championship experience, creating a matchup that promised to showcase basketball at its absolute highest level. This was the team that had ended Chicago's championship aspirations the previous year. The young, athletic squad led by Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway that many considered the future of professional basketball. The series served as both revenge narrative and generational passing ceremony. The basketball world was watching to see whether Chicago's regular season dominance would translate to playoff success against the team that had eliminated them just 1 year earlier. The Bulls provided their answer with a 4-game sweep that made their previous year's defeat seem like ancient history rather than recent memory. Jordan's motivation against Orlando was palpable throughout the series, his scoring and defensive intensity reaching levels that seemed almost personal rather than purely competitive. Every possession carried the weight of redemption, while his performance was providing emphatic answers to any lingering doubts about his championship-level excellence. But the Bulls' dominance was systematic rather than individual. Shaquille O'Neal's physical superiority was neutralized by team defense and strategic fouling that prevented him from establishing rhythm. The Bulls' approach to defending O'Neal involved multiple players, constant pressure, and defensive schemes that made every possession difficult for the young center. Penny Hardaway found himself overwhelmed by defensive pressure that seemed to anticipate his every move. The Bulls' perimeter defense, led by Jordan and Pippen, was creating problems that Orlando had never experienced during their previous playoff success. Hardaway's ability to create offense for himself and teammates was neutralized by Chicago's systematic approach to defending the Magic's primary offensive threats. The Magic's youth and athleticism, which had served them so well the previous season and throughout the 1996 regular season, seemed inadequate against Chicago's championship experience and systematic approach. The Bulls understood how to win playoff games through execution and mental toughness, rather than relying solely on talent and athleticism. Game 1 set the tone for the entire series, as the Bulls' championship experience was apparent from the opening tip-off. Their execution in crucial moments, their ability to maintain composure under pressure, and their systematic approach to each possession created advantages that Orlando couldn't overcome despite their talent and potential. Jordan's individual performance throughout the series was reaching levels that reminded basketball historians of the greatest championship displays in sports history. His combination of scoring, defense, and leadership was providing the Bulls with advantages that extended far beyond normal statistical contribution. His ability to elevate his game when facing elimination pressure was becoming the defining characteristic of athletic greatness. The cultural impact of the Bulls' Eastern Conference Finals dominance was becoming apparent in ways that extended far beyond basketball. International media coverage was treating the team's march toward championship completion as a global cultural event rather than merely American sporting achievement. Television ratings were reaching unprecedented levels, while merchandise sales were exploding in markets where basketball had previously been virtually unknown. The Bulls' systematic destruction of Orlando was creating confidence that they could handle any challenge the playoffs might present. Their ability to neutralize the Magic's athletic advantages while imposing their own systematic excellence was demonstrating the kind of championship-level basketball that separated elite teams from merely talented ones. As the Eastern Conference Finals concluded, the Bulls' advancement to their 4th finals appearance in 6 years seemed less like playoff progression and more like inevitable completion of a historic season. Their combination of regular season dominance and playoff excellence was creating expectations that they would complete their championship quest with the same systematic approach that had defined their entire season. Meanwhile, The basketball world was preparing for what many considered the most anticipated championship series in years. The matchup between Chicago's systematic excellence and Seattle's athletic dynamism was being framed as the perfect embodiment of different basketball philosophies competing at their highest level. The Supersonics' advancement to their first finals appearance since 1979 was creating enthusiasm and anticipation throughout the Pacific Northwest. Gary Payton's emergence as a finals-caliber superstar was one of the playoffs' most compelling storylines. His combination of defensive excellence and offensive leadership had carried Seattle through difficult playoff series while establishing him as one of the most complete players in basketball. His matchup with Michael Jordan promised to provide one of the most intriguing individual battles in finals history. The stage was set for a championship series that would test both teams' championship credentials while providing basketball fans with what many expected to be a classic confrontation between different approaches to basketball excellence. The United Center was electric for Game 1, with Chicago fans understanding that they were witnessing history in the making. The Bulls had dominated the regular season with 72 wins, swept through the early playoff rounds, and were now 4 victories away from completing one of the most dominant seasons in professional sports history. The Bulls established early dominance in Game 1, their championship experience showing from the opening tip-off. Jordan was playing with the kind of controlled fury that had defined his greatest playoff performances, while the supporting cast was executing their roles with precision that only comes from years of playing together at the highest level. Seattle's youth and athleticism were apparent from the opening minutes, but their inexperience on basketball's biggest stage was also evident. The Supersonics were playing harder and faster than they had all season, but the finals' pressure and pace were different from anything they had previously experienced. The Bulls won Game 1 by 18 points, their systematic approach to each possession creating advantages that Seattle couldn't overcome despite their talent and effort. Jordan scored 31 points, while the Bulls' defense held Seattle to 38% shooting from the field, establishing the tone for what many expected to be a dominant championship series. Game 2 provided more of the same, as the Bulls' championship pedigree continued to show in crucial moments. Dennis Rodman's rebounding was particularly crucial. His 20 rebounds, including 11 offensive boards, providing Chicago with extra possessions that proved decisive in close games. His relentless work on the glass was showcasing the kind of championship-level intensity that separated elite teams from merely talented ones. Rodman's Game 2 performance was historic even by his standards. His 11 offensive rebounds tied an NBA Finals record, while his energy and intensity were inspiring teammates and intimidating opponents in ways that changed the game's dynamic. His ability to impact winning through effort and determination rather than scoring was providing the Bulls with advantages that Seattle couldn't match. The Supersonics' supporting cast was struggling with the finals' pressure and pace. Players who had been reliable throughout the regular season and earlier playoff rounds were making uncharacteristic mistakes while shooting poorly in crucial moments. The gap between regular season basketball and finals-level competition was becoming apparent in ways that favored Chicago's championship experience, but Seattle refused to concede defeat quietly. Coach George Karl's decision to assign Gary Payton to guard Michael Jordan full-time, beginning in Game 4, proved more effective than anyone had anticipated. The change represented a desperate gamble, using their best offensive player to focus primarily on defense. But Karl understood that traditional approaches weren't working against Chicago's systematic excellence. Payton's combination of physical strength, defensive quickness, and basketball intelligence created the kind of sustained pressure that had troubled Jordan throughout his career. His ability to make Jordan work for every shot while disrupting the timing and rhythm that made the Bulls' offense so effective was changing the series' dynamic in ways that surprised everyone. including the Bulls themselves. The adjustment worked immediately. In Game 4, Jordan shot only 6 of 19 from the field, his lowest shooting percentage in a finals game in years. Payton's physical defense and psychological pressure were affecting Jordan in ways that few players had managed throughout his career, while the Supersonics' confidence was growing with each successful defensive possession. Game 5 saw similar struggles for Jordan, as he managed just 5 of 16 shooting, while Payton's defensive pressure seemed to disrupt the rhythm that had made Chicago so dominant throughout the season. The Supersonics won both games behind Payton's defensive brilliance and their renewed confidence, sending the series back to Chicago for Game 6. The possibility of a historic upset was beginning to enter basketball consciousness. Shawn Kemp's supporting performance throughout Games 4 and 5 was equally crucial to Seattle's success. His athleticism and energy were reaching levels that seemed to transcend normal basketball competition, while his chemistry with Payton was producing the kind of complementary excellence that championship teams require. The Supersonics' supporting cast was finally playing with the kind of confidence and execution that their regular season performance had suggested. Players like Detlef Schrempf and Sam Perkins were providing crucial contributions, while the team's depth was matching Chicago's championship-level intensity. The series' momentum had completely shifted, with Seattle's defensive adjustment creating problems that the Bulls hadn't faced all season. For the first time since early in the regular season, Chicago looked vulnerable, their systematic approach disrupted by defensive pressure that was affecting their primary offensive weapon. June 16, 1996, Father's Day. The emotional weight of the date was not lost on anyone who understood Michael Jordan's personal history. The game itself became a battle of wills between two teams that refused to yield to pressure or circumstance. Jordan was struggling with his shooting throughout, finishing with 22 points on 5 of 19 shooting from the field. But championship basketball, at its highest level, transcends individual statistics and embraces collective excellence that can overcome individual struggles. Scottie Pippen's versatility proved crucial in the clinching victory. His ability to guard multiple positions while creating offense from various court locations, providing Chicago with options when Jordan's shot wasn't falling. His 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists represented the kind of complete performance that defined championship-level basketball, while his leadership was providing stability during the game's most crucial moments. Dennis Rodman's rebounding dominance continued in the clinching game, his 19 rebounds, including 11 offensive boards, providing Chicago with the extra possessions necessary to secure victory. The supporting cast stepped up when needed most. Luke Longley provided 12 points on efficient shooting, proving that the Bulls' depth extended beyond their superstars. Steve Kerr hit crucial three-pointers that maintained Chicago's momentum during Seattle's defensive surges, while his clutch play was demonstrating the kind of championship-level execution that separated elite teams from merely talented ones. As the final seconds expired and the Bulls secured an 87-75 victory, Jordan collapsed to the floor of the United Center locker room afterward, overwhelmed by emotion that had been building since his father's death. The image of Jordan clutching the basketball while tears streamed down his face became one of the most powerful and enduring in sports history, providing human context for athletic achievement that transcended normal competitive accomplishment. "This is for Daddy," Jordan said through his tears, dedicating the championship to his father's memory. The Bulls' championship completion marked the end of one of the most dominant seasons in professional sports history. The Bulls had not merely won a championship. They had created a cultural phenomenon that transcended sports and entered the realm of global entertainment and artistic achievement. Michael Jordan's collection of individual honors told the story of complete basketball mastery over the course of an entire season. His fourth Most Valuable Player award recognized not just statistical excellence, but leadership and competitive fire. that had driven an entire organization to historical heights. His finals MVP award, also his fourth, tied him with Magic Johnson for the most in NBA history while cementing his reputation as basketball's ultimate clutch performer. But beyond the numbers was the intangible leadership and competitive intensity that had transformed a very good team into a legendary one, while his ability to elevate teammates made the entire organization better. Scottie Pippen earned All-NBA first-team recognition for his versatile excellence throughout the season. His averages of 19.4 points, 6.4 rebounds, and 5.9 assists, combined with elite defense at multiple positions, had been crucial to Chicago's success. Pippen's ability to excel without dominating the basketball represented the kind of selfless excellence that defined championship-level basketball. Dennis Rodman led the league in rebounding for the fifth consecutive season, his 14.9 rebounds per game providing Chicago with a physical dimension they had never possessed during their earlier championship runs. His combination of rebounding prowess, defensive intensity, and psychological warfare had filled the final piece of the Bulls' championship puzzle, while demonstrating how specialized excellence could impact winning. Phil Jackson earned Coach of the Year honors for orchestrating one of the greatest coaching achievements in professional sports history. His management of diverse personalities, implementation of the triangle offense, and ability to maintain focus during a record-breaking season showcased leadership that transcended normal athletic coaching. The triangle offense had reached levels of sophistication that made basketball look like art. Gary Payton's Defensive Player of the Year award made NBA history by recognizing the first point guard ever to receive the honor. His revolutionary defensive play had redefined possibilities for perimeter defense, while setting new standards for what teams could expect from the point guard position. His performance in the finals, particularly his defensive effectiveness against Jordan, had established him as one of the most complete players in basketball. Georg Murasan's Most Improved Player Award recognized one of the most dramatic individual developments in professional sports history. Tony Kukoc won Sixth Man of the Year for his versatile contributions off the Chicago bench. Damon Stoudemire earned Rookie of the Year recognition for his exceptional season in Portland. But the season's legacy extended far beyond individual awards and team achievements. The Bulls had created a global cultural phenomenon that introduced basketball to audiences who had never previously shown interest in American professional sports. International television viewership reached unprecedented levels, while merchandise sales exploded in markets where basketball had been virtually unknown. The cultural impact was particularly apparent in the intersection of sports, music, and fashion. NBA jerseys became fashion statements worn by celebrities and musicians worldwide, while players like Jordan and O'Neal became style icons whose influence extended far beyond basketball courts. Hip-hop artists increasingly referenced basketball players and teams in their lyrics, while the visual aesthetics of basketball influenced fashion, advertising, and entertainment design. Magic Johnson's comeback season had provided inspiration that extended far beyond basketball courts. His openness about living with HIV had helped reduce stigma while raising awareness about prevention and treatment in ways that educated millions and provided hope to countless people facing similar health challenges. His public platform had demonstrated how athletic success could be used for social good and education. The international influence on the NBA had reached new levels throughout the season. Players from multiple continents had contributed to the league's success, while the global appeal of basketball was becoming undeniable. The success of international players was opening eyes about worldwide talent pools while laying groundwork for the NBA's future international expansion and the development of basketball as a truly global sport. The rookie class of 1995 had proven to be historically significant beyond their immediate contributions. Kevin Garnett's successful transition from high school to professional basketball had opened new possibilities for player development while challenging traditional assumptions about readiness for professional competition. His success was beginning to reshape how teams would approach talent acquisition and development. The season had also established new benchmarks for athletic achievement and organizational excellence. From a historical perspective, the 1995-1996 season represented the perfect intersection of individual greatness and team achievement. The Bulls had created a standard for sustained excellence that seemed to belong more to theoretical perfection than actual competitive reality, while their success was inspiring athletes and organizations worldwide. Jordan's emotional championship celebration on Father's Day had provided the kind of human drama that transcended sports and entered the realm of universal human experience. The season's place in basketball history was secure even before the playoffs began, but the championship completion had elevated the achievement into the realm of sporting mythology. Their triangle offense reached levels of sophistication that made basketball look like art, while their defensive intensity created problems that opponents found impossible to solve consistently. Michael Jordan's individual dominance throughout the season provided the foundation for arguments about athletic greatness that continue to resonate throughout popular culture. The Bulls became more than a basketball team. They became a cultural phenomenon that influenced artistic expression and commercial possibilities, while demonstrating the power of athletic excellence to capture global imagination. The international influence on basketball that began during the 1995-1996 season laid groundwork for the NBA's current global popularity. The season proved that even in an era of increasing parity and competitive balance, individual greatness could still elevate team performance to levels that seemed to defy normal competitive limitations. The emotional climax of Jordan's Father's Day championship provided human context for athletic achievement that continues to resonate with sports fans worldwide. The season's legacy is secure, undiminished by time or changing circumstances. It stands as proof that sports can create art, that competition can inspire transcendence, and that sometimes athletic reality can exceed even our highest expectations for human achievement. The Bulls' 72 wins and championship represent more than basketball success. They represent the pursuit of perfection and the achievement of something approaching athletic immortality. Sweet dreams.